one thing I think a lot of us, and you highlighted it a minute ago about, look, we're in a pandemic. A lot of us or all of us are closed off somewhere, home or elsewhere. Given as we kind of eventually in the future, whatever time frame that is, move forward, go back to an office, maybe looking different. Um, but what as far as getting back to work, how can REITs help the economy get back to work? Because I think that's something that our audience, and including myself, is interested to hear maybe how that can happen or how that can be moved forward.
Well, REITs, being the owner of a building, if they are supporting the tenants and putting things in place like temperature sensing when you enter a building, being very transparent about the health and safety protocols that they're implementing in the building, and clearly communicating that to the users of the building, that will help tenants feel comfortable to come back into the building, and help the tenants themselves communicate things to their employees. So it is definitely a domino effect. Whereas maybe, in our portfolio, one of the key performance indicators has always been a tenant engagement thing. How is the owner engaging with the tenant? It's always been important. It's just right now it's highlighted the importance of that, maintaining that open communication to the tenant and the people using whatever building it is, the industrial building, the healthcare center. They have to be very clear to how they're opening their doors to outside people. But that's how we'll get back to work.
Yeah. And also the kind of the thought leadership and the research that's gone into this. Some of this stuff, well, a lot of it is actually new. One of the REITs in our portfolio, Boston Properties, actually hired an epidemiologist, Professor Joe Allen, who is an expert in the health and safety of buildings. And with him and with their tenants and with other experts, they built a come back to work program that then they published. It was like 30 pages on how to have safety, health and safety protocols in COVID to get people back into the building, whether it's the temperature checks or the elevator use or the cleaning programs. And they shared that with the entire real estate community. They had the biggest office REIT in the world. They had the resources to do the research. They went ahead and shared it with everyone, which we think is also critical to getting people back to work.
Wow, that's impressive. Because you mentioned a little bit about the notion of healthy buildings and what that entails. It seems to me like that right there, what you just said, is something that everyone is going to have to figure out, right? Before anybody can go back, and so that itself, the largest REIT helping other REITs and just giving confidence, which is significant in itself to the audience of employees, owners of businesses, is going to be a mandatory requirement going forward. Anything else to add or to that notion of healthy buildings? Again, anything else that you're seeing, hearing, what's being talked about? Because I think that it sounds like of all the things, not the only and most important thing, but it's pretty up there as far as significance for us going forward.
Well, I think it's the community at large getting used to these things being part of their daily kind of landscape, what they expect to see at a building, how they expect to interact with the built environment, period, having to wear a mask or having your temperature checked. There's been a real learning curve, but now we are up to speed, so to speak. So I think going forward, we'll just have to see how the pandemic part of that plays out. But now we're, I think, less afraid to go outside and to go into buildings, because now we have more knowledge, and through REITs that are leading with public display of what is to be expected, informed by people who know, that really, I think, helps people get out.
And I think that we haven't seen this yet in terms of financial performance or anything, but you could make a plausible argument that the companies that are leading in sustainability, like Boston Properties, who are on the forefront of developing healthier programs and better buildings for well-being, will be the ones that have the spaces people will want to come back to.
Mm-hmm.
They will be the ones that will be able to attract tenants, be able to charge higher rents, and be able to thrive quickly as we come out of the deepest part of the crisis. And so from an investment perspective, it's gratifying to us that we're invested in the leaders here when we know that there's going to be some negative fallout for a large portion of the industry.
Right. That's interesting. I think that's not just offering a solution that helps a lot of people in a great way, but it removes some of the risk as well for a lot of those stakeholders, which you highlighted initially, right? Those stakeholders probably are going to be able to step back and say, you know what, we feel better about this subset who are doing it the way that we think is probably further along, and others, like you said, the laggards may suffer in different ways. So that's interesting.